نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. وعن أبي جري جابر بن سليم رضي الله عنه قال قلت لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اعهد إلي قال لا تسبن أحدا قال فما سببت بعده حرا ولا عبدا ولا بعيرا ولا شاة قال ولا تحقرن شيئا من المعروف وأن تكلم أخاك وأنت منبسط إليه وجهك إن ذلك من المعروف وارفع إزارك إلى نصف الساق فإن أبيت فإلى الكعبين وإياك وإسبال الإزار فإنها من المخيلة وإن الله لا يحب المخيلة وإن امرؤ شتمك وعيرك بما يعلم فيك فلا تعيره بما تعلم فيه فإنما وبال ذلك عليه وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام وهو بعض الحديث رواه أبو داود. In continuation of our dars of hadith from our previous halaq, our previous dars, from the book of Muntakhab Ahadith under the chapter of Ikram al-Muslim, honoring the rights of a Muslim. And this is the subchapter particularly under the subchapter of warning on harming, the warnings that are given on harming a Muslim. This hadith is hadith number 285 from this chapter. This hadith is from Abu Dawood. We did go over the basic translation of this hadith. We'll review it quickly and then inshallah we'll go into the many points mentioned in this hadith. Abu Juray Jabir ibn Sulaym. Abu Juray Jabir ibn Sulaym radiyallahu anhu, he narrates that I asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam for some advice. Please give me some advice. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam responded that do not abuse anyone. La tasubbanna ahada. Do not abuse anyone. The Rawi, the Sahabi Abu Juray Jabir ibn Sulaym radiyallahu anhu, he says that after that, I've never abused a free man. Again, abusing meaning using foul language or curse words or any kind of abuse. He said, I've never abused any free man or a slave or a camel or a goat. Basically, I never abused anything after this advice. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam then further gave advice. وَلَا تَحْقِرَنَّ شَيْئًا مِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ وَأَن تُكَلِّمَ أَخَاكَ مُنبَسِطٌ إِلَيْهِ وَجْهَكَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ. Do not consider any act of kindness as insignificant. Do not look down on any act of righteousness. Don't think that any good deed is insignificant. Speaking cheerfully with your brother is also an act of righteousness or an act of kindness. It's from ma'roof. So any good deed, no matter how small it may look to us or how insignificant it may seem to us, one thing is very clear is that in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it has value. The next advice that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave, وَرْفَعْ إِزَارَكَ إِلَى نِصْفِ السَّاقِ. Keep your izar, your lower garment, up to the middle of your calf. فَإِنْ أَبَيْتَ فَإِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. But if you don't feel about that, at least keep it up to your ankles. Don't let it drag below your ankles. وَإِيَّاكَ وَإِسْبَالَ الْإِزَارِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنَ الْمَخِيلَةِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمَخِيلَةِ. And do not allow your garment to drag below your ankles, meaning be very, very careful with letting it drag below your ankles, because that is a sign of pride. If your garment is, your trousers or your garment is trailing behind you, this is a sign of pride. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not like those who are proud or those who have pride. وَإِنِ امْرُؤٌ شَتَمَكَ وَعَيَّرَكَ بِمَا يَعْلَمُ فِيكَ فَلَا تُعَيِّرْهُ بِمَا تَعْلَمُ فِيهِ فَإِنَّمَا وَبَالٌ ذَلِكَ عَلَيْهِ إنما وبال ذلك عليه. The next advice, that if someone is abusing you or trying to shame you in front of others with something they know about you, they have some knowledge about you, something that may be shameful, and they're using that to disgrace you, then do not disgrace them or shame them with something you know about them. Because then the responsibility of this sin will be on them. For them shaming you and disgracing you, they'll carry the sin. But if you go back and retort back that, yeah, but you're also like this, and all of a sudden you are disgracing them with something you know about them, now you also carry the same burden. So we should be very, very careful. This is part of a hadith from Abu Dawood. So there are a few major points here in this hadith, and we'll try to cover them. The first point is لا تسبن أحد, don't curse anyone. And we did go over this portion. Don't curse anyone, don't abuse anyone. And we know from even the ayat of the Quran that this is not just limited to an individual. You can even go beyond that. As the Sahabi Abu Jabir ibn Sulaiman radiyallahu anhu, he made it clear that after I heard this advice to do not abuse anything or do not abuse anyone, I didn't abuse a free person or a slave or a camel or even a goat. I didn't abuse anything. So we should be very, very careful with our tongues, what words we say, what we say. In the ayat of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even goes further and tells us very clearly, وَلَا تَسُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. And do not curse or abuse the idols and false deities of the mushrikeen, those that are worshipping things other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't abuse their idols, don't curse idols. Because in return, those mushrikeen and kuffar and disbelievers, they will in turn abuse your deen, and they may even curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or curse out Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should be very, very careful even in our da'wah, and making a mockery of someone's deen or making fun of someone's deen or abusing and cursing at someone's false ideas or false beliefs. كَذَلِكَ زَيَّنَّا لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ عَمَلَهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the same ayah in the Quran that we have beautified for every nation their actions. So we should be very, very careful. We should not play judge and jury. We should just give our da'wah. Our responsibility is to invite people to hidayah and guidance. As far as them accepting and getting guided or becoming guided, that hidayah and guidance is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even that, we should not abuse their false idols, even though we are convinced 100% that that is shirk and that these idols are made up in just fantasies of their imagination. Even then, we should be very, very, very careful in making a mockery of their deen or making a mockery of their way of life. And no one will accept Islam or come to Islam if we do this. So if this is also not allowed, then in every sense, we should remove this habit of abusing anyone. Unfortunately, what happens is that many a times, especially with family members, it happens in some relationships where either the spouses or the spouses abuse each other, or the parents will abuse the children. We should be very, very careful with what kind of words we use, what kind of phrases we use. And we should be very, very careful with our words. Sometimes spouses, they get in an argument and abuse starts. First, abusive language and argument starts. And sometimes the language goes to the point where they start making dua against each other. And there are particular ahadith that warn us against doing something like this, that be very careful. And abusing someone or cursing someone, maybe that is the time that dua is accepted. There are certain times in the day and night when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepts dua. And in those times, if someone is using abusive language or cursing or making dua against their loved ones or someone that they care about, it can have a very lasting effect. And we sometimes don't even realize it. We end up destroying our own comfort. We cause each other harm. through these abusive language and cursing and these, ill will and such du'as and such evil words. We don't even realize it, that we remove the comfort from the house. When the hardship starts and the sicknesses starts and the destruction starts in the house, it affects everyone in the house. But in turn, that is the time of acceptance that we didn't even realize we did not control our tongue. We did not bring ourselves under control. So we should be very, very, very careful and abusing one another, especially spouses and the parents abusing the children. There's a big difference between discipline and abuse, and we should understand the difference. In discipline, it's very to the point, it's very structured. It has particular punishment meted out for a particular infringement. When it comes to abuse, many times it doesn't even have a limit, or sometimes the punishment goes beyond the limits. So we should be, discipline is one thing, and abuse is something else, and we should know the difference. We should understand the difference. That just we should not think that, okay, we're told that we should not abuse in any way, and all of a sudden become completely lenient and the children go off track. There should be a system of discipline. And this is what we have been taught by the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and also the Sunnah of the Anbiya of the past, and also by all of the wise hukama, those that have wisdom. Amongst the many advices that are reported from Hakim Luqman alayhi salam, the wise sage, one of those advice was that discipline your children and keep a discipline in the family. And that is as essential for the family as water is for the crops. We know that if we want to have a good farm, the crops need water. If crops do not get enough water on time, they will die. And we know this. So, and again, look at the words, the wisdom that is used in those words. That as important water is for the crops, that's how important discipline is for the family. And again, this discipline for the family applies to every individual in the family, more so for the children. But there needs to be a system of check and balance between the spouses and between the children. There should be some level of discipline. Without that, just like crops will die, the family can also fall apart, or the children may go off track, or many other problems may happen between spouses. So the system of discipline needs to be there. But the discipline should not turn into abuse, where in some cases it happens where the parents end up taking enjoyment from over-disciplining the children, being over-tough, being too tough with the children. That can also cause many, many problems. It's just like giving excess water to the crops. You give too much water to the crops, you'll also destroy the crops. Similarly, you become too stringent and too tough and unnecessarily, you can also damage the children. When the children grow up and they get some freedom, first thing they do is they leave. And the very things that you were trying to discipline them and warn them against, that's the first thing they get involved in. So we should be very, very careful. Within limits, we should know how much discipline should be given. It should not be too less, it should not be too much. There needs to be a certain level, and that is in some of these systems, there used to be a system back again in the Islamic culture, and that system is still there in some cultures and in some families, where when a couple, they get married, then they sit them down and they teach them particular systems of how to treat one another, their rights, and also how to have children and discipline the children. This is something that is learned. Remember one thing, parenting is not something automatic. It's not that if somebody has children, automatically they know how to be a parent. One is becoming a parent, and one is understanding parenting. They're two very different things. It's like anything in life. You can become an owner of something, but knowing how to maintain it, how to take care of it, that's a very different story. In some cultures in the world, even today, When a young couple, they get married, they sit them down, they teach them how to treat one another, teach them their rights. They also teach them how to keep the family together, and also importance of parenting. When to be tough, how tough to be, many different things. And these lessons generally the elders teach the new couple, many of these things. And it is kind of an understood system in the society, and you'll find in many of those societies, the vast majority, if not all, but the vast majority of families have a very disciplined structure. Unfortunately, when you get to the Western world, the system of freedom, which has gone so far that almost disciplining children is now it's turning into a crime, or it is almost becoming a crime. So there's almost no discipline, and you see how far the society has gone away from the very basics of human decency or human understanding. And unfortunately, you find even in the youth, especially in this time and age, there's almost no system of right and wrong. Almost the system of right and wrong is being blurred. They're losing even the sense of what is considered right and wrong. Sometimes even in education systems, what they're being taught, they're being taught such strange things where even their identity as male or female is now being challenged. So as parents, we need to be very careful. Don't over-discipline where it becomes so strict that life becomes impossible for the children. But at the same time, don't become so lax in discipline that we lose them and we're not able to keep them in a disciplined structure. So there's a very big difference between what is discipline and what is abuse. We should not make the discipline turn into abuse. It should not become mental torture for the children. It should not become physical torture for the children. But there needs to be a system of discipline. So it's very different than abuse. Again, when it comes to abuse, and sometimes we do become angry. At that time, it's important to control our tongue, control our emotions. Sometimes we may say something, either cursing them or making dua against them. We don't even realize the destructive nature of that dua. Sometimes we just say things without realizing how destructive they can be. And we need to be very careful what we say, especially at the time when we become angry. I'll just share one story with you. There is an imam in the Haram of Makkah, one of the imams. It's from one of the African countries. I don't know, from Senegal or Sudan, wherever he's from. They're asking this sheikh that of so many shuyukh that have come and they apply for this job, how did you get the job? There's so many other, some may be more qualified than you, who even may have more knowledge than you. How did you get this position as imam? And again, at a young age, he was not very old, a young age, and how you've been in this position. How did you get this job? The sheikh said, I don't know anything special about me. I don't have much ibadah, I don't have many good deeds, I'm not that knowledgeable. He said, but I'll tell you one thing. When I was young, I was very naughty, just like naughty children. And he says, sometimes when my mother would become very angry at me, would really go beyond the limits, and my mother would become very angry at me. So he said, my mother, in a fit of anger, where she would slap me or discipline me, she used to say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you the imam of haram so you may realize how much you're hurting me. What a dua. So he said, this dua is still remembered till now. He said, now I went back to my mother. I told her, you see your dua you used to make for me. Anytime you would become angry with me, you used to make this dua. I'm so sorry for being naughty. So he said, this in the fit of anger, my mother used to make this kind of dua. What kind of, so again, I'm just sharing with you, we should not start making this dua and also all our children will be imams of the haram. It's a good thing, but there'll be too many imams. But I'm just sharing with you that even in a fit of anger, if we learn to discipline our words and check our words, what kind of dua we're making, it can have a lasting effect on the children. Sometimes few words They can last with the children for a very, very long time, rather than becoming abusive and cursing and using foul language. And I mean, what are we really passing on to the next generation? So we should never be abusive, especially with those that we care about, those that we love. Don't be abusive. Learn to control your emotions. Learn to control your words. And this, again, parents to children. Again, also among spouses, be very, very careful. We have found, from what we have seen, some of the cases used to come to our shuyukh, and the spouses used to get in fights and used to go too far. Sometimes we used to go and check with the family. There were some families, and I'll just share this with you. One of the families that we saw, one problem after another. There was either sickness in the family, the sickness got better, they got accident, they couldn't get a car. And then family members got up, took their wealth, business shut down. One problem after another. And it was almost so consecutive, like it was unbelievable. One of the shuyukh, and they again came and they were asking, this might be evil eye, or this might be sihr, magic, this might be this or that. They were going so many different scenarios. It could be this, it could be that. They came to the shuyukh. One of the shuyukh said, listen, do you fight? I said, yeah, we do fight. I said, do you shout at each other? I said, yes, we shout. I said, what do you say when you shout? When you start shouting and you get angry, both of you, you're angry at each other, husband and wife. What are you guys saying? And the kind of words that they were saying against each other in dua, I can't even say. It was such destructive dua they were making against each other. The Shaykh told them that every day or every other day you're fighting and you're saying this kind of dua to each other. You're looking here and there that somebody may have done evil eye to you, or black magic to you, or done this to you, or done that to you. The truth is, you're making dua against each other, you're destroying each other. Everything that is happening to you is your own dua against each other. But sometimes we don't even realize how much we're destroying ourselves and how much we're destroying our family. When we become angry, we start abusing and cursing. That dua does get accepted. Sometimes we don't realize it. And it may be a time when the dua is accepted, sometimes around the salah time, or it is a special time when dua is accepted. And shaitan is very, very clever, so he'll spark an argument or a fight at that time. And the cursing starts, the abuse starts, the dua starts. And life never gets better. And again, when the tongue is controlled, when that emotions are brought on in a very short time, life becomes normal, and again, life becomes beautiful again. So we need to be very, very careful with abusing anyone. And first and foremost, with each other. Start with each other. Just next time you become angry, be quiet. That's the best thing you can do. Just be quiet. Get out of that place. Remove yourself from that argument. Control your words. Control your tongue. We don't realize how dangerous that abuse can become. And that's in this world. I'm not even going to the akhirah. What sin is there in the akhirah, that's a different story. So be very, very careful. When you abuse someone, when you become angry with someone, what kind of dua you make against them, be very, very careful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ.